Meghan feels so grand, like you just said. She thinks she looks very high, and Harry follows her, dunk 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 behind her, and it's they're getting punished for all their bad things that they've been done for people and let people down and been rude. Nobody wants to see them. Nobody wants to know them. I mean, it's cringing, isn't it?
What if the biggest secret threatening the Sussex story was never hidden inside palace walls at all? What if it had been sitting in plain sight for years, quietly waiting for someone with real access to finally connect the dots? Suddenly, one respected royal biographer has reopened a chapter many believed was permanently closed, and the timing could not be more explosive. This is not another anonymous rumor drifting through social media. This comes from someone who spent years observing Prince Harry long before California, before multi-million dollar interviews, before documentaries, memoirs, and public family wars transformed everything. Angela Levin isn't describing gossip she overheard from strangers. She's describing a version of Harry she personally watched unfold. And according to her, the warning signs were there from the very beginning. The shocking question isn't whether Harry changed after Meghan entered his life. The real mystery is whether the man everyone thinks disappeared was already disappearing long before she arrived. Levin's words hit like an alarm bell because they challenged the entire foundation of the Sussex narrative.
It's Harry's fault. She was wonderful for him and he had a very good time and she helped him be happy and not get so upset about things. And then she went to university and he wouldn't go and see her. He didn't want to go. And then he started having lots of affairs with other women. Now, what would she do? She'd just say, get out of it. And then he was all sorry and he wanted to sort of her to apologize. But, no thanks. You don't want to go through that again. So he ruined it for himself.
Instead of presenting Harry as a prince broken by the institution until one woman rescued him, she paints a far more uncomfortable picture. She describes a man already struggling with patterns that those closest to him quietly witnessed years earlier. But suddenly, every decision, every relationship, every dramatic public moment begins looking less like isolated incidents and more like pieces of a puzzle that was forming long before the camera started rolling. Was everyone looking in the wrong direction this entire time? According to Levin, before the headlines and Hollywood deals. There was another woman who knew Harry better than almost anyone else. Not because she wanted royal status, not because she chased publicity. Quite the opposite. She wanted something astonishingly ordinary. Trust, honesty, stability. She wasn't fascinated by crowns or cameras. She simply believed she was building a future with the real Harry. That belief, however, would eventually collide with a reality she never expected. As attention turns toward Montecito today, another question suddenly becomes impossible to ignore. When Meghan said yes to Harry, how much of this earlier chapter did she truly know? Because Chelsea Davy wasn't just another former girlfriend casually mentioned in royal timelines.
Spent a lot of time with him, just sitting and talking. He would just say, sometimes he would say, I feel much better now. I'm getting much better. I've got there. I am, doing quite well, and I'm going to be able to do this and that. And they're all open. Along comes Meghan, and I'm sorry to say this, but I'm pleased to say it in another.
She occupied nearly a decade of Harry's life during some of his most formative years. She understood royal pressure without allowing it to define her. She had ambitions of her own, a career she was building herself, and an identity completely separate from palace influence. She didn't need Harry's title to create her future. She already had one. That is precisely why Levin's account carries such emotional weight. She remembers Chelsea as someone who brought genuine calm into Harry's complicated world. Someone who loved the outdoors, cherished animals, avoided unnecessary drama, and represented a rare sense of normality in a life surrounded by extraordinary privilege. For a while, it appeared she offered Harry something no royal advisor, no palace official, and no public approval rating ever could piece. But peace only survives where trust survives. Then came the revelation that changed everything. According to Levin's account, while Chelsea focused on building her own future, Harry allegedly betrayed the relationship through multiple affairs. The betrayal wasn't dramatic because Chelsea never turned it into public theater. She didn't rush toward television interviews. She didn't leak stories. She didn't launch campaigns of revenge. Instead, she made one devastatingly simple decision. She walked away.
Lots of jewelry and expensive clothes. She could make her own jewelry, but she didn't go after expensive things. She just loved, and she loved animals like he did, And so she was very upset afterwards, but she's very happy now. And I'm very, very pleased for her because she's a very lovely woman. And he missed
Quietly, completely, and perhaps that silence became louder than any accusation ever could. Years have passed, yet Chelsea's life appears remarkably untouched by the chaos surrounding the royal headlines. She built her own jewelry business, she focused on family, she continued living outside the relentless spotlight that consumed Harry's later years. There were no books exposing private conversations, no podcasts revisiting old romances, no endless attempts to monetize the past.
It's kept on and on and on and on. She has made him hate his family. She's had made him that he's got bad mental health. And actually, you can do that. You can have a person in your life who tries to drown you and make everything awful. And she hasn't tried to make him better.
In a world obsessed with public battles, her silence almost feels suspiciously powerful. Could that silence itself be revealing more than words ever could? Levin's conclusion lands with remarkable force. In only a few carefully chosen sentences, she suggests Harry lost something genuinely rare, not because fate separated them, not because royal duty made love impossible, but because his own decisions destroyed what may have been his strongest chance at lasting happiness. That observation suddenly casts an entirely different shadow over the carefully crafted Sussex story.
Everyone, because really he's very unhappy and he's not having a nice time, and so he does those sorts of things. He does everything that William does in some sort of way, but William's just going to close his eyes to it. He's got a lot to do. He's got a lot of things to remember and to be responsible for, and very important things. And he's not going to be upset by Harry's stupid things because you just cut it out.
If Harry had already experienced someone who truly understood him, then the narrative that nobody ever saw the real Harry before Meghan becomes much harder to accept without asking uncomfortable questions. And those questions are only beginning to grow louder. And this is where the story stops being about the past and starts becoming dangerously relevant to the present. Because if Chelsea didn't just drift away, but was driven out by what Harry did when no one was watching, then everything changes. Every speech, every interview, every emotional confession suddenly feels incomplete. What exactly did Meghan hear when Harry told his story? Was it the full truth or a carefully edited version designed to protect him? Did he present himself as the misunderstood prince who had simply never been loved properly before?
You can't actually tell somebody this, to write a biography. In 2017, that's when I wrote that, and you're still getting nowhere by 2026. Wouldn't you be ashamed of yourself not saying that with like a long moan? I was furious reading it.
Because if that's what happened, then the entire foundation of their relationship may have been built on a narrative that quietly left out the most important chapter. Levin's long observation of Harry begins to feel less like commentary and more like a timeline of missed warnings. She didn't arrive late to this story. She was there early, watching him in moments when cameras weren't dictating behavior. She believed in him. That's what makes this shift so unsettling. This is not someone attacking from the outside. This is someone who once defended him, who saw potential, who expected something better. And now, years later, she's revisiting everything with the clarity of hindsight, and what she sees doesn't align with the image Harry has been projecting to the world. What she describes now is not a man evolving, but a pattern repeating. A pattern of dissatisfaction, comparison, and quiet resentment that seems to follow him no matter where he goes. Even his relationship with his own brother becomes part of this puzzle. Not through open confrontation, but through subtle imitation, subtle tension, subtle distance. And the silence around those moments begins to feel louder than any public statement. Because silence in stories like this is never empty. It's filled with everything people are choosing not to say. Then comes the part that makes this situation impossible to ignore. The timing. Because this isn't being revealed during a moment of Sussex strength. It's emerging during visible strain. During a period when deals are fading, attention is shifting, and the carefully maintained image of unstoppable momentum is beginning to crack. The Netflix era that once felt dominant now feels uncertain. The podcast presence has faded into memory. The grand rebrand that promised a new chapter hasn't delivered the impact it was supposed to. And at the exact same moment, Chelsea's life quietly reappears in contrast stable, fulfilled, untouched by chaos. That contrast doesn't need commentary. It speaks for itself, loudly and now for Meghan. This becomes something far more complicated than a distant royal story. Because this revelation doesn't attack her directly, it undermines the narrative she has built everything on. The idea that she was the one who truly saw Harry, the one who finally understood him, the one who helped him become his authentic self. But if someone else saw him first and walked away for very specific reasons, then what does that say about the version Meghan was given? That question lingers, and it doesn't go away, because this time the information isn't coming from a source that can be dismissed, discredited, or quietly reframed. It's coming from someone whose credibility sits uncomfortably outside Meghan's control. Someone who knew Harry before her, watched him closely, and is now choosing to speak with a precision that feels deliberate, controlled, almost restrained, as if what's being said is only a fraction of what could be said. And that is where the tension deepens, because if this is only part of the story, then what hasn't been revealed yet? What details are still sitting just beyond the public record, waiting for the right moment, the right pressure, the right trigger to surface? And more importantly, how is all of this playing out behind closed doors in Montecito, where the public smiles remain perfectly composed, but the private conversations may be anything but? Because in the end, this isn't just about Chelsea or Levin or even Harry's past. It's about something far more unsettling. It's about whether the story the world has been watching was ever complete to begin with, or whether the most important truth has only just started to emerge.